Caravanning is home away from home. I went around Australia in 1980 with a caravan with my first wife and 2 boys.
I started we lived in England and we toured around Europe every holiday and every weekend, and we loved it.
We met, it'd be 16 years ago now. We both had just lost our partners 12 months previous, and we're still pretty raw, but that sort of drew us together.
It took a while to recover. And we weren't looking for partners or anything. For me, I just looked at his face and I thought, wow, that man's got such a sweet face, such a kind face. I really did.
You mustn't have had your glasses on.
And of course, I found out all about him.
And at the end of 12 months, we tied the knot. We set off around Australia together and just worked in with each other where we wanted to see and what we wanted to see. Don't go on a caravan trip if you don't love each other. We love it. You get extra cuddles as you're trying to get past each other sometimes.
And I really do feel that it brings you closer together. You know, for us at least, for John and for myself, it's just, you know, lovely to be on our own in this caravan and, you know, we just take what is some hassle, we're both into it, you know, supporting each other and, you know, when we're happy, we joke around, laugh. No, it's good. It's really good.
Sit around the campfire at night and have our discussions through the day and maybe go for a hike.
In the bush, the trees, the breath of that beautiful, you know, air, fresh air. And I really love it.
You wake up of a morning in the caravan and you think, well, what's ahead today? And it's always exciting.
For many, this seems like the ideal story. Spending time with the one you love, joking and laughing together with a sense of adventure added.
So many retirees plan for a grey nomad's life. They hook up their caravan to see and experience the country. John and Margie Hodgkinson are typical, and they're one illustration of what you can do in your retirement.
But not everyone wants to do this. In this program, we're looking at ways to work out what you can do in your retirement.
Retirement is the capstone event of our lives. And it's important to remember that when we enter in retirement, we don't change our personalities. We don't suddenly become somebody new. So if you have had an attitude of openness and flexibility and keenness to learn new things all through your life, then entering into retirement, I don't think you'll struggle with finding what to do.
Linda Grattan and Andrew Scott, who are professors at the London Business School, have suggested in their book, The 100-Year Life, that a person born today in the developed world has a 50% chance of living to 105. A person who is 20 today has a 50% chance of reaching 100. A person who is 40, a 50% chance of reaching 95, and a person who is 60, a 50% chance of reaching 90 plus. This is rather staggering when you think about it. People on our planet are living longer. And they say this, it's come about from better health and nutrition, better medical care, better sanitation, and public health campaigns. The non-smoking campaign, for instance, as being one of those. And a simple illustration of what's happening here, in the British Empire, the Queen sends a birthday card to everybody who turns 100. Now, a decade ago, just 10 years ago, one person was caring for that. Now, there's a staff of 7 caring for it. We are living longer, and people who retire need to recognise that.
Firstly, because people are living longer, there's much more awareness in the community of being healthy, exercising, travel options, etc. When I started in this business, I'm talking 1975, and a lot of those people were retired at age 65, and a lot of them were dead by 70. These days, you retire at 65, you might be dead by 95.
You've got to fill a lot of time. I think a lot of people go back to a well sort of formulated plan. If I had $1 for everyone who tells me they're going to go around Australia on a trip, they're going to paint their house and they're going to spend more time with their grandchildren, I could have already have retired myself by now. So I think people have a almost like a formulaic approach to retirement, rather than thinking about how do they want to spend those years and what are the things that maybe they've been saving up to do.
My suggestion would be to follow your heart and go with something that interests you, something that you find really intriguing, that you want to explore, that you want to know more about, that you'd like to do or that you'd like to learn. So it's a continuation really of a lifelong attitude of learning, a lifelong attitude of being open to new experiences. You don't suddenly become a new person the day you retire and then have a new mindset. So this mindset you've been building up as you go through life. And then when you reach retirement, hopefully then it can broaden and you can expand your horizons and you can look at something new, something that you would like to do. It can be a very exciting time of life.
Well, what I would love to see happen is a senior gap year. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Saying, look, I'm just going to go and experiment. I think you actually have to start thinking about what you're curious about, what passions you have, and also perhaps, as well as having a financial portfolio, start thinking about your retirement lifestyle portfolio. So what sort of things are going to be in your lifestyle portfolio? Is there going to be volunteering? Is there going to be paid work? Is there going to be some sort of hobby, some creativity? How are you going to keep healthy?
What's needed is a long-term planning approach to your retirement. That means thinking not only about the first 6 months, but the first year and the first 5 years. That helps to get things into perspective.
The other thing is not to leave experimenting with what you'd like to do until retirement, but start now. Try things that you think might interest you.
I encourage from a life planning perspective that people do things like make sure they take their holidays throughout their life. Take their long service leave if it's available in their country to go and explore the world. Take sabbaticals, go back and do courses. Do it throughout your life because it actually gives an insight into what retirement could be like. And so it's very much that 3 boxes of life, education, work and leisure in parallel throughout your whole life, because it will actually, I think, lead to a more fruitful life. It will lead to a life of less regrets. So don't leave it too late because there could be unexpected things that otherwise stop you from doing it.
You know, one of the things that I would strongly encourage people to do is get involved in activities now while they're working that they're thinking about doing in retirement, because research we've done here and other research also in Japan shows that only about 22% of people will take up new activities in retirement. So if there's something that you want to do, that you've been thinking about saving up for retirement, I'd say do it now, get involved, because by the time you come to retirement, it will be a well-developed interest with a new network. So it helps you to tap into groups of people you might not have had access to before.
It's best to start testing things before you get there. I mean, some people say, oh, when I retire, I'm going to take up gardening. And they get to take up gardening and they hate it. Or they say, I'm going to become a photographer. And they find that it's a lot more complicated and difficult than they thought it would be. And they've never tested some of these things. So my advice to people when they get to, say, age 50, start testing some of the things that you might be interested in. Even having a go at starting a little business or something like that. Get out there and watch what other people are doing. What turns you on? A lot of people don't know. You need to start thinking way before you get to retirement age, if there is such a thing.
It's practical to be ready for a plan B. The Australian statistics say that 28% of men and 20% of women are forced to retire. It could come about because of sickness, it could come about because of loss of job and not being able to get another one, it could come about because they're caring for a family member. If this happens to you, this is a time to say, okay, it's happened, can't fix it, it's time for plan B, and work on that.
It doesn't take long to work out that life doesn't always go to plan. We're forced to be flexible when this happens, to go to plan B, even if we're not sure what it is at the time.
John and Margie learnt this while caravanning in the outback.
We were on our way towards Fitzroy Crossing. We're about 40 kilometres before we got there, and
We heard a pop, and straight after that there was just no acceleration at all. We were still on the road, and John started to pull off, and I could see smoke coming out of the front, and then I'm saying to him, "Look, it's not smoke, it's fire."
so we hopped out of the road, and there was a lot of smoke and flames going.
And John just said to me, "Just jump out, don't take anything, just go. We've got gas bottles and things in the car. If it reaches any of them, you'll go out with it." So I didn't take my bag. I didn't take anything. I had the bag behind John's seat.
So we hopped out of the road, and our friend, he noticed we weren't with him. So he turned around and come back, and to his surprise, there was a lot of smoke and flames going. So he quickly dived in, pulled the caravan out of the road, and by that time the fire's well out into the bush. There's a bushfire going, and then the fire brigade turned up 40 minutes later.
We were just so surprised that it took so long, and I just stood there just watching this thing going, the windows going, all the front of the car just melting. Amazing how everything just melts in there. And then a few big pops for the gas and what have you, and all our lovely new equipment was gone.
So there wasn't much left of the car. The only thing we rescued was the tow ball. The rest was gone, and it was history. You're a long way from home. Our friends Bob and Bev Walker were travelling with us. Bob drove us in, towed our caravan into Broome, which was 500 kilometres down the road. We bought another car, came back, hooked on, and continued on our journey.
I think if you're forced into retirement, it can be quite emotionally difficult too, especially if it's been a redundancy or something you haven't seen coming. So, you know, once you've sort of managed through that, I think from what I've seen from clients, focusing on hobbies and activities that they like to do helps. You develop your hobbies. So if you're a reader, for example, and you know you've worked full time, you're a reader, you read every now and then. Well, perhaps you develop that as more of an activity. You might go to the library, join some book clubs, go to some writers' festivals. You know, explore that because you've got a bit more time on your hand as well. Or you might find you go into writing. You know, whatever it is. So if you suddenly find yourself unemployed, you know, this forced retirement, it is a change of mindset, but I think the worst thing that can be done is sort of wallowing in self-pity and not making an effort to replace that work with something else meaningful.
We've seen a lot of focus on pension or superannuation type considerations around the world, and we haven't seen as much focus on the non-financial aspects of what the retirement phase, or what we're calling the third age or third phase of life, entails. And so things like reminding people and taking people through what traditional work provides for them. So work in its traditional node provides structure, purpose, time management, social connection, as well as income, a lot of which we take for granted. And we don't realise we have it until we don't have it. And that's what happens particularly when someone has an unplanned or involuntary retirement.
I think when people are forced into retirement unexpectedly, that does have an impact on retirement adjustment. We know that if people feel that they've had very little say about how and when they retire, it affects their adjustment, and it's likely to be a more difficult transition. That's why I suggest to people, if you plan ahead and you know what retirement will look like, all it does is it fast forwards the plan. You've got the plan, you just know that you need to put it into action. I think also too, having a look at joint goals and planning together rather than people sort of doing that in isolation. So getting together maybe with a financial planner or with some other sort of trusted advisor to sit down and work through those options together as a couple.
Planning ahead is really good advice, particularly when we don't know what the future holds for us.
And a simple way to begin could be working on your bucket list. That's the list of things you want to do before you kick the bucket.
And don't forget to be adventurous.
Bucket lists are good because you have something to look forward to. I think it helps that transition between a time of working and then moving into retirement. So it's important for that transition. Something to look forward to is very important. It helps us to feel happy and increases our sense of well-being.
I think a bucket list allows people to dream, it allows them to plan, it allows them to have projects to get excited about. I think if they are done with a little bit of wisdom, not too much, otherwise people think about it too much and overthink it and never do anything and panic about running out of money. But I think if they're done with a little bit of wisdom, then I think they can be great. And it doesn't matter how many of the items on the bucket list are actually ticked off. The very fact that you're thinking about it and planning about it adds some energy, which I think is really important.
One of the traps that some retirees fall into is having no plan, not knowing what they're going to do. And I met a policeman one day. He asked what I did, and I said I had an interest in retirement. He said, "Oh, I tried that once." And so I asked him, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "Well, I retired and I discovered that after 3 months of watching television, I just got sick of it, so I went and found another job."
I think one of the biggest mistakes is getting the timing right. And people will leave work for lots of different reasons. They'll leave at that time and then later, like within a year, they're back out looking for work again. They're just bored. So I think being able to be clear about what you want is important. I think some people are quite happy to retire from work and never go back, and that's fine too.
There's also a sense of moving from a structured environment into something that we have to structure ourselves. And that can be an interesting transition too, because now we have to take charge of our own day, our own program, and we need to fill that with something. We need a reason to get up in the morning.
Maybe one of the things you can consider is working part-time and kind of sliding into retirement, just to help you work through this transition time, rather than jumping off the cliff, as people say.
You could just work seasonally. You could work 2 days a week. You could work half days. There's lots of different ways that you can make up that sort of part-time work combination. So having a look at all of those different options beforehand.
Maybe you want to get into the gig economy, having a gig on the side. Uber drivers, that's a gig on the side. Or maybe you want to become an entrepreneur. Currently, the 55 to 65 year age group is the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. Maybe this could be you. Or maybe there could be some other exciting thing you could get into.
We see a lot of older entrepreneurs starting up businesses. So having a look at your strengths, where are the areas of work that really give you genuine joy, where you feel that your strengths are best applied, and think about whether or not the current job you have allows you to do that.
If you want to start a business, even, whether you're working or not, I would say, why do you want to start the business? Is it to have something to do? Is it to maybe earn a little bit of income? Is it to build this big asset and take over the world? So if you know the why, then that will help direct the decisions that you make. And do something that you're skilled in or interested in, but I think you need to do your research as well. So is there a market for whatever product or service you're going to sell? How much is it going to cost to develop that, and how much time will you spend? Is someone going to pay what needs to be paid for you to make a profit? Do you actually want to make a profit, or is it a social enterprise? So sounds like you're overcomplicating things, but you don't have to think too hard about it or spend a lot of time, but just give a little bit of thought to those questions and see how you go.
But I do think that trying before you commit to it, fully, you might be looking at that through rose-coloured glasses. I always, dreamed of setting up and running my own bakery until I actually had to work in one. And then get up at, 3 o'clock in the morning when it was Easter time to make the, yeast buns. So, you know, that was something that I was able to put to bed, but only by experiencing it first.
Well, my first piece of advice is don't risk your retirement savings. In other words, if you're going to start a little business, start small. Now, there's two critical things that everybody in business has to master. Only two. One is you have to learn how to attract clients or business. And the second one, you must get paid. Now, if you don't master those two things, you won't be in business for very, very long. There's a lot of other things you've got to learn about regulations and barcodes on things and suppliers and all those other things. But if you haven't got a client, you're not going to stay in business. And if you don't get paid, you're not going to stay in business. They're the only two things that really, really matter. Now, what I like about the internet is you can run a little business from home, you can attract clients by having a good website, and you can get paid by using PayPal or any of the other payment systems. And in many cases, you get paid before you even deliver the things. We sell books on where to retire and other things, and we get paid before we even ship the book off. That's what you've got to try and master.
You have the time, you have the freedom. You are in control. That's why it's a great time of life.
A satisfying life comes from living life to the full. And that's why we keep emphasising a whole-of-life approach in preparing for and in retirement.
It's really about creating and living a satisfying life, a life that's both balanced and fulfilling. It's about positive emotion, engagement, accomplishment, positive relationships, and meaning.
Look, the science on this is really quite fascinating, and essentially it seems that there are 5 things necessary for a life to truly, what they call flourish. That's the terminology we use. And that is, you need positive emotion. So you need pleasure, you need joy, those sorts of good feelings. You need a sense of engagement. That is things that you're into, that you enjoy for the sheer joy of doing them. You need a sense of accomplishment and mastery in your life. Then you need positive relationships. And this is where it starts. These is where it gets to the deeper levels of flourishing, if you like, but relationships being really foundational. And then the last thing the science indicates is people need a sense of meaning in their life. And that meaning comes from having a sense of belonging to and contributing to something bigger than yourself.
I like to think of, you know, these little buckets, if you like, of things that provide a bit of a recipe for success. So it's health, wealth, social, cognitive, emotional and motivational. And having a tick in pretty much every box helps to ensure balance and also retirement adjustment.
The happiness research tells us that what actually gives people happiness is relationships and purpose and meaning. That's what the best research is telling us, and happiness research now has been going on for a number of years, and it keeps coming up with the same stuff, that it's about relationships, that it's not just about me, that it's about others. I was looking at a study recently that said that it is also important to take care of yourself financially, physically and emotionally. One of the interesting findings that have come out is that if people volunteer for a day a week, and if they do that consistently in retirement, they actually lengthen their life by a number of years. Some have suggested it may even be up to 9 years. That may be a bit optimistic, but you can add years to your life simply by doing stuff for other people on a regular basis.
Happiness is often made up of small things. So there can be many aspects to a happy life, but one of the important things really is your engagement with others. So to be able to be involved with others in the lives of others, investing in the lives of others, giving back perhaps to society what you've received yourself is an important thing, and in return makes you feel a great deal of happiness.
I think another thing that's really important about that is to grow old gracefully rather than fight it. Every now and again you see somebody and they seem to be so hard, working so hard in pretending that they're a lot younger than they are. And it may be the way they dress or it may be the way they talk. And to me, I guess as a counsellor, it simply said they haven't made peace with the age that they're at. So it's actually acceptance of the fact that I'm growing older, More things are going to hurt every morning when I get out of bed. My memory's not going to be as great, and all of that's okay. Because otherwise we actually get very anxious about the process and actually make those symptoms worse if we stress ourselves out about it. But coming to the place of acceptance, this is where I am in life and it's okay, and I've made peace with it, and now I can get on with getting the very best out of this stage of life.
A successful retirement is very difficult to define for some people, but I think it would be one where people they feel they've got some sort of control. They can feel that they're looking ahead maybe in 5-year gaps as well, but also perhaps they're, once again looking at the retirement lifestyle portfolio where there's, some spirituality, there's some volunteering, there may be some part-time work, and maybe you'll start a small business or a profitable hobby. Maybe it means that you're going to be having more interaction with family and friends. So I think you actually have to work out what's successful for you, but make sure you don't have lopsided leisure in that portfolio.
I think the elements of a successful retirement are that social inclusion and the relationship, having a routine, because work's a routine. You get up, you get dressed, have breakfast, go to an office or wherever you work, come home. You need to replace a routine with another kind of routine. It doesn't have to be as strict. I think enjoying the time you have as well. I think the pace is different. So if people have had a fast-paced working career and then all of a sudden they retire, it can take a while for them to change the pace in which they do things. I have a client who was an engineer, and I said, so what do you do with your time, John, in retirement? He said, well, if I was fixing a hinge on a door while I was working, it'd be a half-hour job and I'd do it and it'd be, kind of 80% done. He said, now I do it and I'll measure it up, I'll take the door off, I'll go to Bunnings or a hardware shop, come back, put the hinge on, fix the door. It'll take all day, but I love it. So I think pace is important.
I just think you've got to have something to make you get up in the morning and do something positive, meaningful, make a contribution. It doesn't have to be income producing, it could be voluntary work, but at least you're doing something. You're meeting people, you're enjoying it. So, look, woven in through the middle of it is an enjoyment factor. It's not something you prescribe. There is no formula for retirement. Everyone's different, and you have to sort of sort it out yourself.
I think you need something to do. You need something or someone to love, and you need something to look forward to, something good to anticipate. So if you keep having those things that you want to do or achieve or get to see or experience, if you have those in your life, it's the same kind of things that you need for happiness in life, really.
Someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. That keeps it simple and is a great summary to what's needed for a successful retirement.
It is. And so what are you going to do in your retirement? We hope you've picked up on the point that there is no one size that fits all.
In retirement, we have the freedom to do what we want to do. We're in control, but the really big message is that it's about living life to the full.
And that's exciting. We hope this has helped you to think about what that will mean for you.
And we hope you'll be with us for the next episode, which is about maintaining your health.